Hello, this is Representative Lynda Schlegel Culver. We're just outside of the borough of Northumberland at Zartman Construction. Here with me this afternoon is Dave Zartman, and he is president of Zartman Construction. Thanks for having us here today, Dave.
Hello, Lynda.
So I thought it would be a great start. We were just talking a few minutes ago about how you were nestled in the city of Sunbury on how many acres?
We were on 3 acres in Sunbury, and it was literally, we were that cramped. If all the trucks came back, we couldn't get them in. Sometimes they'd sit outside the gate, and the piles were just, stuff was on top of everything else. And if we wanted to get something, it was easier to go buy it than it would be to dig it off the bottom of the pile. But that wasn't our first spot.
Okay, what was your first spot?
But out on 890, there's a house beside, well, it actually started in my dad's house, but that didn't last long, and he soon bought a house on 890 and moved his office in there, and we actually had a warehouse in Augustaville.
Which is outside of Sunbury.
Which is outside of Sunbury, on 890. Both were on 890. And we, at that point, he was in there 5 years, 4 or 5 years, until he moved and bought the old casket company in Sunbury. And
how old would you have been at this time?
I would have been 13 when he started in '73. So we moved to Sunbury in '79. I was in college at the time, so but we worked out of there till 2000 and moved up here in the winter 2000 or late 1999, something like that.
And you needed to move because the business was growing, or?
Well, in the early 90s, McDonald's came by and offered to buy the parking lot, but what good was the lot without the parking lot? And so Dad declined. And McDonald's hasn't ever come to town, Sunbury anyway, but when CVS came by, he had been prepared, if something comes up again, he was going to take advantage of it. So we ended up agreeing, he agreed to sell to CVS, and they subdivided some other parcels off, or divided our lot into 3 lots and sold it off to 3 different people, and we had 6 months to find a place. So this was formerly a Wicks, an empty Wicks lumberyard, and it fits our bill perfectly. So we've been here ever since, and it's helped a lot. When we were in Sunbury, we were a Sunbury contractor, and this, I think, has made us more of a regional. We are a regional contractor, and this just fits the bill as being more regional for us. And you know, we're real close to Danville and Bloomsburg. We do a lot of work at Lewisburg, at Bucknell, you know, the Sunbury direction, and even farther. Our circle works. Well, I actually have 2 jobs in State College right now. Nothing going in Williamsport, but we had a couple over summer up in Williamsport, so it's working well.
So when your dad started the business, how many employees?
It was just him.
Just him.
And he didn't have aspirations to go into business. He just felt, I don't want to describe it. He just hadn't been felt like he'd been treated right on an instant with his previous employer, and decided in a 2-week period to go into business for himself and never look back. So
I'll say, from working out of your house to 18 acres of ground, is that correct?
Yep.
And how many employees today?
I asked about 2 weeks ago. We were at about 150 employees, over 100 field guys working in the field, and the field guys and the crane operators are easily over 100, and then we probably have 25 people here in the office. So.
And is this the tradition of family still continue on to this day in the business?
I'm hoping so. I have 2 boys. One graduated from engineering school, and the other one in architectural engineering, so they're...
And the tradition in the family seems to be to go to what school for?
Penn State for architectural engineering. Whether the 3rd one goes, that's his choice. He's interested in Penn State, but whether he ends up at the AE program or not, I don't know. So,
So younger, welders or people looking for apprenticeships, or do you take on a lot of younger employees looking for that kind of experience?
By tradition, a lot of people in construction are younger, but our average workforce is probably well into the 40s, but we do have a lot of younger guys. Well, I know of 2, 3 different guys that have just been out of high school a year or two, so there's a broad gambit. And we do several different crafts. We do carpentry work, we do steel erection, and then we also do, the carpentry's in line with the concrete work, so we do self-perform a lot of concrete. We do a lot of concrete work. In fact, that's as much as anything else. And then we have the pre-engineered building side, where we do pre-engineered metal buildings, if you want to call it that. Around here and most part of rural Pennsylvania, I consider there's not enough buildings of one type to specialize in. If you go to Philadelphia, you might have somebody that does concrete, and that's all they do. Around here, we don't have that luxury of having enough work of anything. So any building is fair game to us. So it doesn't really matter. Now, we've never built a single family house. That was just a conscious decision Dad made not to do single family. We've done apartment buildings and student housing and things like that, but we don't do single family residence.
So it's mostly commercial work, not
commercial, industrial,
residential.
and industrial. And we actually have, along with carpenters and steel guys, we have millwright crews where we actually do, and it fits well with our crane service, riggers and stuff like that, so we're moving machinery. In fact, we just, for a client down in Northumberland, moved some obsolete equipment up here and put it on railroad cars to be scrapped out. So it was I think it was over 200,000 pounds of scrap that we rigged down there, hauled up here, and then put in a railroad car for them. So that was just this week.
So can you, for anybody watching us today, can you tell us some of the jobs we might be aware of that you've done that maybe we don't know that you've actually done?
Well, one that comes to mind is we're proud of the fact that we were heavily involved with doing the Phoenix roller coaster at Knoebels. That was back in 1985, and that was a fun project. Our biggest project was 3 dorms, I call them that, they're apartments at Bloomsburg University. That was over a $20 million job, 430 bed building, 3 buildings for that many beds. And we just finished Academic West for Bucknell. That was 70,000 square feet of new, predominantly classroom and office space, professor's office and stuff. There's one computer lab in the building. Very complex building. Not as complex as a science building, but it was definitely just a lot of stuff going on in that building. It's a really neat building. I'd recommend anybody taking a look at that one. And I'd say last winter, we completed a 70,000 square foot building for General Electric. It was design build, so we had the architects and engineers under us, and we were the lead person on that contract. That was out in Lewistown. They have a very sophisticated operation out there with their sensing equipment and stuff like that. They do non-destructive testing equipment out there, and they're really interesting. I learned a lot just going out and visiting that site. So that was our first tilt-up process too, where we poured the walls flat, like on this table, pour a wall, and then we craned them up into vertical and braced them until we put the structure in between. So
we saw that on your website. We wanted to know what the tilt-up process was, so thank you for explaining that.
Yep, that's you just pour a casting bed of some sort. Maybe it's the floor in the building. Put the reinforcing down, and that has to be designed for both permanent loads and the temporary loads. Actually, there's some areas that have more stress in it when you're lifting it than it will ever see when it's in its life in the building. So, that wasn't our first tilt up. That was our most intricate tilt up. So, What's some of the other projects? We did, one of the ones that was fun for me, I did a railroad drawbridge up in Williamsport for a North Shore Railroad, or Lycoming Valley, but it was the offices down here in Northumberland. And a situation where they were abandoning 2 tracks, but they had to go across to a wire stretcher for Williamsport wire rope, and when they had to have the train be able to go over top, so we build a drawbridge for them. So it goes up just like you see, it goes up and down hydraulically.
Which probably not a lot of those are designed anymore.
It was a onesie type thing, so it's one of those that you just, all right, here's your parameters, figure out what you have to do to build it. So we did, and we were low bidder, and the project went well, and that's probably in operation 12 or 15 years now. So.
And the company recently celebrated a milestone.
Yes, that's right. We've 40 years in June, I believe it was officially 40 years. 1973 to 2013, hoping for 40 more or plus, 40 plus. But it's, and we had some celebrations with that we've been enjoying this year. So.
I know, we talk about companies growing, and I think you have 150 plus or minus employees, but a lot of your employees have been here a long time. It sort of creates that family atmosphere of, employees taking care of each other. And do you know what your recipe for success was for being able to attract and then retain employees with loyalty for that long?
I think our philosophy with customers and employees are the same. People want to be treated fairly, and that's what we try and do. So, and honesty is the best policy, and if we have a problem on a job, we go back and fix it, and no questions asked. And I think that applies the way I want, our employees to be treated, is fairly and honestly. So.
That's good. I did notice on your website, which I was unaware of, there's some solar construction going on.
We've done a little bit of solar. Now, the solar market in Pennsylvania has dropped off. It isn't nearly as prevalent as it was 2-3 years ago. It was booming 2-3 years ago. And so we did several projects, and it's been a struggle to get some more solar projects. We bid one occasionally, but the payback isn't the best. So it's not the hard sell's not the fact that the solar, it's the fact that it doesn't pay for itself without the grants and everything else that goes with it. So it makes it a harder market. So, but I think in the long term, it's not going to go away, and it's going to be part of some of these projects. So, we understand it and know what to, how to do them. So we've been prepared. We're prepared for when it does get more active. So. Okay.
Did you know that the Pennsylvania Farm Show's history goes all the way back to 1851? Originally organized as a state fair by the Pennsylvania Agricultural Society, it was discontinued in 1899. It wasn't until 1916 that Charles Patton, the Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture, worked with others to develop a new agricultural fair which debuted in January 1917. It was in 1925 that the roots were laid for the farm show that we know today. The show had grown so large that 40,000 attendees were traveling to various sites all around Harrisburg. During this year, the Pennsylvania State Department of Agriculture took control of the event, and the legislature had decided to appropriate money that gave birth to the Farm Show complex. Finally, in 1931, the main exhibition building opened and welcomed 150,000 visitors to the show that year. Over the years, the farm show has continued to grow. Various events showcasing animals, products, and skills were added to the event. The farm show complex has also continued to grow, with more buildings and arenas being added over the years. The count stands at 24 acres inside 11 buildings and 3 arenas. Today, the show hosts approximately 6,000 animals, 10,000 competitive exhibits and 300 commercial exhibits, along with over 500,000 visitors. Since the doors to the main exhibition building opened, the farm show has become the world's biggest indoor agricultural event. Now you know.
Welcome back to Legislative Report. We're here at Zartman Construction with Dave Zartman. And Dave, just kind of starting our second half. We've not talked about you, your experience, your education, and how you got to where you are today. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I can say I grew up in construction. I can remember even before Dad was in business that he'd take me along to job sites. And then when he started, I did just about everything when I was about 13 or 14 years old and went along. The first year or two, I can say we never built a house, but we did residential work to get enough, he did enough residential work to get enough cash flow to move on to commercial industrial work. And so I can remember putting patios on for a summer. You know, we'd go out and probably be, some of them would be a day and some of them might be all week, and just work patios. And then eventually just that only lasted a year or two till he was in and doing commercial industrial work. So so I grew up, summers were helping, and then I went to college for architectural engineering, which we talked about. And
Did you always know you wanted to?
I love building things. My wife says I'm lousy at maintenance, but I love to build things. So, so give me a project, I'll take it to the nth degree. But for me, maintenance is a hard thing. And so anyway, graduated from college, started here with project management and estimating, and did both. And finally, slowly was assuming more and more management duties. And Dad's still around, and but he's not doing any day-to-day, and I do most of the day-to-day. But I will say we have a great team. It's not me, just me. It is our team of employees that really make this work. I personally try and delegate responsibility and authority. And if you make a decision, I'll back you up. And that these guys know that if they make a decision, or it may not be the perfect decision, but they're not going to get their head chewed off because they made a decision and went with something. And that has worked well for us. We and down to the project managers and the superintendents, let them, they're the ones have in the trenches of doing the work, and they're making the decision with the best information they have. So, you know, we support their decisions and go. And I think that has been part of our, what helps us, makes us. And our employees, having our own field crews, which is somewhat unusual. A lot of contractors have become construction managers, and we do construction management work. But with our employees and self-performing our work, then we can develop our own supervisors and identify people, and then and bring them up through the ranks. So that has, I think, too, part of our success has been being able to bring people along, and then they stay for a long time too. About half our office is field guys and half is our college guys, and it works well. It's a good blend because you need both kinds of experience for different kinds of projects. A lot of projects, you know, the more difficult the project, the better we like them, and sometimes it's the schedule that's the hard part. And some stuff is administratively work for, you know, DGS or somebody. There's paper tigers. You got to just do tons and tons of paperwork, just the way it is. So that's, and other times it's technically difficult work, and the harder it is, the more fun they are, I think. So
do you, I mean, I don't know that the general public realizes, to get a project sort of started, sort of all the things, the hoops you have to jump through to get there. Can you sort of expand upon that for me?
You know, we do a fair amount of design build, and we have Ted August, who's also my brother-in-law, does civil engineering, and that is, a lot of times it's harder to get permission to do the work than to actually do the work when the time comes. I've seen projects take 1 or 2 years between financing and permits and everything else going on, and it takes us 6 months to build the building. And so you start with the civil engineering, the site work, all the zoning and that stuff, and then depending on the project, we can do, we'll do some design build in-house, but we'll work with local architects and do design build that way. And like I said, it's a lot of times it's just as hard or harder to get to the point where you can turn the shovel over than it is to actually do the project.
If you had to guess how many agencies and, you know, local government, county government, state government, federal government that you have to go through to get to that end product?
Oh man, it can be as simple as 2 or 3, and it can be 5 or 6 in a heartbeat, depending if you got to deal with somebody for sewer, and it may not be agency, maybe it's in a utility, you know, a water utility or something. And then if you're dealing with PennDOT for occupancy permits and stormwater management stuff with your conservation districts, and then the planning and the township levels or whatever, and if DEP gets involved, it just, and it's none of what that is really, I don't want to say it. It all needs to be taken care of, and I understand why. But the time it consumes when a township has 30-day waiting period for zoning and then another 30-day for the supervisor's meeting or whatever it is, it just chews up so much time in a project. And depending on the situation, it can take a long time to get through all of that.
Would it be fair to say sometimes it takes longer to get through the regulatory process than the actual build, as you said?
Easily.
And probably costs a tad more when you're running through all those.
Yeah, because time is money. For if the customer can't use his building or can't get in a building, get it built to use it, you know, he is not producing for his company and, you know, the well-being of the state and the United States.
So now I would assume a business that does, you know, regional projects has to have a lot of equipment here. Is it your equipment? Do you rent the equipment?
That's part of our business. And actually, we're a bit of an anomaly in the construction industry anymore, because so many construction companies don't own their own equipment, and we do. We have man lifts, scissor lifts, forklifts. We don't do a lot of our own excavation work, but we still have a backhoe and some mini excavators and a dump truck. And our crane service is our biggest rental side, and our largest amount of equipment we have, and then we have concrete pumping service, servicing our customers, and then serving ourselves. Our customers are building customers, but then also going out and we rent to other people if they need crane service or whatever.
And I assume the crane service, your employee goes with it and operates the crane. 99%
of the time. We do have a couple of situations where we'll rent the crane without an operator, but usually it's a 2-3 month rental and they have their own operator or something like that. It's only certain cranes we'll do that with.
And I remember when you got the first crane, I think you were still in Sunbury.
I think the first crane was in '78. And that was an 18-ton Bantam truck crane. And nowadays that truck comes on the back of a cab practically. You have a flatbed behind it. That was a traditional looking crane, and yet it's only 18 ton, and the industry has evolved a lot technology-wise. And the cranes we have scales on them, so if we pick a load, we can tell you how much it weighs, and if you start to swing out too far, it'll cut you out and stop the crane before it lets it tip over or whatever. So some of these pieces of equipment, the cranes that we have, are very sophisticated pieces, and they had quite a bit of operator knowledge to operate them.
And how many do you have today?
We have 11 cranes and 2 concrete pumps.
And the operators that operate them, how much training goes into that?
Well, all our operators are CCO certified crane operators, and I think you need 2,000 hours operation before they even let you take the test. So it's just a lot of on-hands training on operating the cranes.
So how about we go outside and maybe look at one of these cranes and
yep, we set one up to look at.
Okay, thank you. So Dave and I are here outside of the Zartman Construction building, and behind us I think you'll see a crane which can be extended how far, Dave?
Well, that one will probably go out to about 300 feet, plus the jib of another 100 feet, so it goes quite a way. That's our largest crane. It's a 225-ton Grove, and we have a total of 11 cranes. Our smallest is down to an 8.5 ton. It's made to go inside buildings and work inside the buildings, some of the plants we work in. So
with equipment, I would think very expensive, and people to run it are trained very well. Your safety, you want to talk about safety a little bit?
Yeah, we work real hard. We have a full-time safety director. We have safety committee. We've been doing an hour's training for anybody, different topics on a monthly basis after every safety committee. Last year we did a half a day, brought all the employees in and picked 4 topics and trained them on that. We had our best time has been over 900 days without a lost time accident, and not only do I want everybody to go home at night, but safety pays. And even if we don't have an accident and those type of things, it really saves on our workman's comp mod and everything else. So,
Dave, I know it was very important to you through this entire interview process to do one particular thing. So I want to make sure you get that done before we close out today.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank all our customers. We have a very, very loyal customer base. Wise Market says we've been working for them for 25 or 30 years. We've been working at Bucknell since 1983. We have other clients that we have people in for 5 years at a time. They just keep moving our guys from project to project, and without the customers like that, we wouldn't be here or what we are today. And we just try and do a good job and make them happy, and I really appreciate the fact that they'll come back to us and we do more work for them.
That's great. I want to thank you for having me here today, you and the entire Zartman Construction family. This is Representative Lynda Schlegel Culver. Thank you for watching this legislative report. If you have any questions or concerns about what Zartman Construction does, you can go out to their website. You can call them if you want to talk about doing a job. If you have any legislative questions, please feel free to call my Harrisburg or district office. Thank you for watching.